The first sound was rubber sliding on concrete. The second was no sound at all, just the biker woman's breath gone missing under the gas station lights. Marvin Cecil had $10 for tomorrow's food. He spent it on a stranger who might not live to see tomorrow. "Kid!" the clerk barked from the doorway. "Leave it! You don't want biker trouble." The word trouble echoed. It sounded like eviction notices, price tags on inhalers, and every sideways look Marvin collected on the walk home. He sprinted inside, slapped the 10 on the counter. "Water, aspirin." Back at the pavement, he cracked the bottle cap with shaking fingers and lifted it toward her. "Ma'am, look at me. Small sips. Chew these." Her gloved hand found his wrist and held on like a rope in deep water. The vest, the scars, the rumors. None of it mattered. A person was drowning. Marvin knew what to do. Before we continue, click subscribe, like this video, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more captivating stories, and trust me, you won't want to miss them. Blue lights painted the pumps. As the EMTs took over, the clerk kept staring at the empty till where Marvin's last 10 had vanished. Marvin didn't know it yet, but that bill was a flare. By morning, 200 engines would answer it. But before the thunder rolled down his block, before cameras and chrome and 5 gifts no one believed were real, go back to the morning that set the stage. Sunlight hadn't touched the east side yet when Marvin eased his bedroom door shut to keep the coughs from waking Grandma Ruth. The kitchen held a heel of bread, a dented can, and not much else. He counted bus fare with one hand and texted the mechanic shop with the other. After school shift, still good? The day already felt overdrafted, rent overdue, Grandma's meds running out, a science project he hadn't started, and somewhere, a $10 bill he planned to stretch like a prayer. The sun wasn't up yet, just a gray smear behind the blinds. Marvin eased his door shut and padded past the couch where Grandma Ruth had fallen asleep sitting up. Her inhaler lay on the coffee table like a tiny lighthouse that had gone dark. She coughed, one of those dry, scraping coughs that sounded like it came from a place too deep to fix, and blinked awake with a smile that asked him not to worry. "Morning, sugar," she rasped. "You eat first." He nodded, headed for the kitchen, and opened the cupboard like it might have changed overnight. It hadn't. 2 slices of bread, hard at the edges, and half a can of beans capped with plastic wrap. He checked the fridge, a wedge of margarine and a lonely jar of pickles. He spread the margarine thin, toasted the bread until the kitchen smelled faintly like something better, and split it. Half for her, half for him. He warmed the beans and tried to make them look like more by spooning them into small bowls. Ruth shuffled in, blanket draped over her shoulders. "Looks like a feast," she said, eyes teasing. "Chef's special," he said, and slid her the bigger half of toast. She noticed. "Boy, don't make me come out of retirement to whoop you." "Take that back." He cut the slice and traded pieces until it felt fair. She took 2 bites, then coughed again and reached for the inhaler. The wheeze that followed was a little less sharp, but the shadows under her eyes stowed. "We'll pick up your refill after school," Marvin said. She glanced at the calendar magneted to the fridge. "End of the month, baby. I can make this one stretch." "You shouldn't have to stretch to breathe." Her hand found his wrist, light but steady. "This family's been stretching a long time. We ain't snapped yet." He washed their dishes and checked his phone. A text from Ro, the shop owner. "If you can do 3/8, I'll keep you on the lifts. Cash today." Marvin typed back, "I'm there," and exhaled. Cash meant bus fare, maybe milk, maybe the inhaler if Ro had enough hours. He grabbed his backpack. The front pocket sagged where a textbook had torn it last semester. He'd stitched it with fishing line from the discount store. The fix held, but just. "I'll be late," he told Ruth. "Ro needs someone to stay after." She tucked the blanket tighter and pretended to be stern. "Homework first. Engineer boys don't get dumb on my watch." He grinned, despite the knot in his chest. "Yes, ma'am." School passed in that way it does when your stomach keeps track of minutes. In chemistry, he stared through formulas and saw pistons. In English, he wrote a paragraph about resilience that was just his grandmother in different words. At lunch, Troy slid his tray across from him. "You hear what the clerk said last night?" Troy asked, voice pitched for gossip. "Says you were all up in some biker lady's business at the Quick Fuel." Marvin stabbed at the mystery meat. "I helped somebody who fell." "Man, you like main charactering life. Folks say those angels roll deep. You want to be careful." "Careful's how people die slow," Marvin said, quieter than he meant. He stood, dumped the tray, and kept moving until the bell saved him from explaining. After the last bell, he jogged the 6 blocks to Rose Auto and Tire. The shop breathed hot rubber and old coffee. Ro, a barrel in coveralls, waved him over with a grease-blackened rag. "Good hands, quick feet. There he is," Ro said. "Bay 2. Sweep out. Then the Civic needs a patch and balance. You shadow me on the brake bleed." "Yes, sir." Ro never asked about home. He asked about torque specs and fluid weights, the kind of questions that landed like trust. Marvin swept, stacked, fetched, and watched the rhythm jack, lug, lift, spin, until it felt like a song he knew. When Ro cracked the bleeder screw, amber fluid wept into the tube. "You keep saying you want to build things," Ro said. "You serious?" "Yeah. Then learn how they break. You can't design a thing right if you're afraid of its failure points." He glanced at Marvin's shoes. The left sole had split at the toe. "Speaking of failure points, after we close, try on a pair from the back. Some delivery kid left size 10s when he quit." "Ro, don't make me feel old by arguing." They worked through the afternoon. The radio hummed Motown low and warm. In the lull between jobs, Ro tapped a flyer pinned near the register. "Detroit Tech, Future Mechanics Program. Apply now." Marvin had memorized every line. "You send this yet?" Ro asked. "Application's free," Marvin said. "The buses to interviews aren't." Ro grunted. "Leave the bus to me. You bring the brains." They finished the last oil change just as dusk soaked the street purple. Ro counted cash into Marvin's palm, then added a folded 10. "For the bus," Ro said. "I can't. If you argue, I'll pay you in nickels. Take it." Marvin pocketed the money and the pride that came with it. He tried on the shoes from the back, almost perfect, a little scuffed, all miracle, and headed home in them like they were wings. In the courtyard outside their building, 2 men smoked over a chipped planter. Mr. Cato from 2B and a cousin who was always there when drama was. They stopped talking as Marvin passed, then didn't. "That the boy helped biker trash last night?" the cousin said just loud enough. "Kids bring trouble home like strays these days." "Mama says those angels be criminals," Mr. Cato said. "You bring that to my door, I call the cops." Marvin kept walking, his ears hot. Each step made the new soles squeak. On the 3rd-floor landing, Mrs. Diaz looked through her peephole and pretended she hadn't. The hallway smelled like bleach and boiled noodles. Somebody's TV laughed canned laughter that wasn't funny. Inside, Ruth had the game show channel on mute and a pot of rice steaming. She read his face before he spoke. "What happened?" "Nothing," He tried to dodge it. Couldn't. People talk? People been talking since the book of Genesis, she said. What they say now. That I brought trouble. That biker folks are criminals. That I should have minded my business. She turned off the burner, let the steam clear, and met his eyes. He'd inherited their shape from his mother. He sometimes avoided mirrors for that reason. Sit. He sat. The table wobbled. He slid a folded napkin under the short leg like a habit. Tell me the part you left out, Ruth said. He told her everything. The clerk's warning, the water bottle, the aspirin, the way the woman's hand had grabbed his wrist like it remembered something from a better life. He told her about the ambulance and about the $10 bill that was supposed to be milk and bus fare, and how he'd watched it turn into a lifesaver instead. Maybe I shouldn't have helped her, he said, voice small. Maybe I made it worse. Ruth reached across the table and cupped his cheek the way she had when he was 9, the night the policewoman in a navy jacket told them his mother wasn't coming back. Back then, Ruth had said, "We keep each other." She said it again now, without words. "Baby," she whispered, "the world loves to call compassion a mistake when it costs something real. But doing right don't need an audience. It just needs you." She could be. He searched for a safer word than dangerous and found complicated. She could be complicated. So are we, Ruth said, smiling tired. So is everybody worth saving. They ate rice and beans, and the room felt a little less empty for having the truth in it. After dishes, Marvin fixed the squeaky cabinet hinge with a dab of grease from the shop, then laid out his homework. He stared at physics problems until the numbers blurred into wheels, gears, angles he wanted to master not for a test, but for the world he planned to build. When he finally shut his notebook, the building had gone quiet. Somewhere below, a baby cried and stopped. A siren slid past and faded. He washed his face, brushed his teeth, and stood at the window a long minute looking at the parking lot where shadows pooled under street lamps. If kindness had a sound, maybe it was the click of a cap on a water bottle, the tiny note of mercy before the bigger noise. He didn't know if anyone else had heard it. He only knew it had felt right. He turned off the light and lay down in the dark. He didn't know it, but someone else had already decided to prove her right. The world always starts quiet before it changes. Marvin woke to the faint whistle of wind through the cracked window and the hum of Grandma Ruth's old radio murmuring in the kitchen. For a few seconds, he thought it was just another day. Another morning of instant coffee, half-spread toast, and the slow march toward the next overdue bill. Then the air shifted. It began as a pulse beneath his feet, too steady to be thunder and too alive to be traffic. The dishes in the sink rattled. The window panes trembled like a warning. He pushed the curtain aside. Down the street, sunlight caught a ripple of chrome. Then another. Then a flood. Motorcycles, hundreds of them, pouring into their block like a storm made of steel and thunder. The growl rolled through the concrete, echoing between buildings, turning every window into a drum. "Grandma," Marvin said, voice caught between awe and fear. "You hear that?" Ruth frowned, pulling her robe tighter. "Lord have mercy, what on earth?" The roar grew louder. People poured out of doorways, phones in hand, voices sharp with panic. "Call the cops!" someone yelled from the corner. "Lock your doors!" another shouted. Engines snarled in unison as the riders formed two clean lines down both sides of the street. Tires squealed, kickstands dropped. The smell of gasoline and leather filled the air. Children pressed faces to windows. Dogs barked, then hid. Marvin's chest went hollow. He knew that symbol. Angel wings embroidered in red thread, the same one stitched across the woman's vest at the gas station. Tracy Harms. Alive. He took one step forward, his new shoes squeaking against the pavement. The memory of her pale face under those harsh gas station lights flashed behind his eyes, the tremor in her hand, the rasp in her breath, the way she'd said his name like a promise. And now she was here. At the front of the convoy, Tracy swung her leg off a gleaming silver bike and pulled off her helmet. Her hair was swept back, eyes hidden behind mirrored sunglasses, the black vest she wore catching sunlight on a new patch stitched across the back. Rode back angels. Marvin froze. For a heartbeat, nobody breathed. Neighbors whispered, "That's her. She's one of them. They're gonna start trouble." But Tracy just looked around, scanning faces until her gaze found him. Then she smiled, small, knowing, real, and grabbed a megaphone from one of the riders behind her. "Marvin Cecil?" Her voice rang out over the engines, steady and strong. "You saved my life!" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A few gasps. Someone whispered his name, unsure whether to be impressed or afraid. Tracy went on, her tone cutting clean through the noise. 2 nights ago, a boy at a gas station gave away his last $10 to help a stranger. Everyone else walked past. That stranger was me. The crowd shifted, uneasy. A camera phone rose in the air. Ruth's hand tightened on Marvin's shoulder. "He didn't ask what colors I wore or what patches were on my back," Tracy said. "He just saw a person who needed help. And he chose compassion over fear." Her words cracked something in the silence. Marvin's heart hammered. He wanted to hide, but Tracy lifted the megaphone again. "Now we're here to return the favor." 200 engines revved as one, the sound climbing into a roar that shook the glass of every window on the block. The vibration ran through Marvin's sneakers, up his spine, into his chest. He couldn't move, didn't dare blink. Tracy dropped the megaphone to her side, voice raw but steady as she spoke without it. "You saved one life, Marvin. Today, we're going to change yours." She gestured, and a row of trucks at the end of the convoy opened their doors. Inside, boxes stacked high. A construction crew already unloading lumber, paint, tools. Another truck bore the logo of Road Back Motors. The neighbors' panic began to flicker into confusion. Phones recorded. Windows opened wider. Someone whispered, "They're not here to fight. They're building something." Ruth's knees wobbled. Marvin caught her arm. "You okay?" She nodded, eyes wide. "I'm fine, baby. But you're about to be seen." Tracy walked toward them, flanked by 2 riders carrying duffel bags. When she reached the curb, she pulled off her sunglasses. Her eyes were a tired blue, lined with years of grit and redemption. "Hey, kid," she said softly. "Didn't think I'd find you this quick." Marvin swallowed. "You're okay." "Thanks to you." Her voice cracked, but only for a second. Most people looked at me and saw a headline. You saw a heartbeat. He wanted to say something back, something smart or humble, but the words caught in his throat. All he managed was, "I didn't do much." "You did everything," Tracy said. "You gave when you had nothing left. That's the kind of power this world forgets exists." She turned to face the street again, raising her megaphone. To the neighbors watching from behind those curtains. "Don't worry. We're not here for trouble. We're here for gratitude." The bikers revved their engines again, this time like applause. Chrome and sunlight flashed together, dazzling. Marvin looked around, people recording, whispering, kids pointing. The fear that had filled the block minutes ago was breaking apart, piece by piece, replaced by something heavier but warmer. Wonder. He'd never felt so small or so seen. Tracy leaned closer, her voice lower now. "We've got a few things for you and your grandma. Might be a lot to take in, so breathe, okay?" He nodded, still trying to make sense of it. Ruth dabbed her eyes with the hem of her sleeve. "Ma'am, I don't—" Tracy smiled. "Please, call me Tracy." A few riders started handing out flyers, the Roadback Angels logo bright against the white paper. Rebuilding lives, one act at a time. A little girl from the next building ran up, laughing as one of the bikers handed her a small toy wrench. The tension broke like a dam. Marvin glanced back at Tracy. "Why me?" She tilted her head. "Because kindness doesn't need permission. And because when the world tells you to walk away and you don't, you deserve to see what that changes." For the first time since that night, Marvin smiled. Just a flicker, but it was there. He didn't know what came next. Only that the world had shifted, the way the air feels right before a summer storm breaks open. As the roar of the engines settled into a hum and the crowd pressed closer, the smell of gasoline mixed with the sharp scent of new paint from the trucks. Marvin's heart pounded in rhythm with the bikes, loud and alive. He thought of the gossip, the judgment, the fear, and how fast it was melting under the heat of this new sound. For the first time in a long time, he felt something close to hope. He didn't know it yet, but the people who thought she was trouble were about to learn what real redemption looked like. For a long moment, the street stood still. The engines quieted one by one until only the low growl of a few idling bikes filled the air, like a heartbeat holding its breath. Tracy Harms faced the crowd, sunlight glinting off her silver zipper, leather vest stretched across shoulders built for storms, and smiled the kind of smile that carried both weight and grace. "Before we start," she said, "I need to tell you who we are." Her voice was rough but steady, the kind that had fought through smoke, wind, and regret. Behind her, the riders straightened in unison, patches on their vests gleaming red and white. Roadback Angels. The neighborhood that once whispered now listened. Tracy turned toward Ruth first. "Ma'am, I owe you a morning without fear. You've got my word, that's what this is." Ruth's eyes softened. "Then maybe it's a morning worth remembering." Tracy nodded, then looked at Marvin. "You see that patch?" she asked, tapping the stitched wings on her chest. "It used to say Hell's Angels, the old world, the one I ran with too long. My brother rode with me back then. We thought we were invincible until we weren't. He fell into drugs, debts, bad deals. I kept telling myself I could fix it by fighting harder, riding faster. Then one night, I got the call no sister should get." Her voice faltered for the first time. The engines hummed lower, like even the machines knew to stay quiet. "When I buried him," she went on, "I made a promise. I wouldn't run from what we'd done. I'd build something new from it. Something that gave back instead of taking. That's how Roadback Angels was born." She gestured toward the riders behind her, men and women with scars, tattoos, and stories carved into their faces. Every one of them lost something. A brother, a mother, a friend, we ride across the country finding people who remind us that redemption's real. People who give, even when they've got nothing left. Her gaze found Marvin again. Like you. A murmur rolled through the crowd. Reporters had started to arrive now, slipping through the onlookers, cameras up, microphones raised. The hum of lenses adjusting joined the faint crackle of radios. Tracy ignored them. 2 nights ago, she said, I stopped to rest at a gas station on the edge of town. I hadn't eaten in a day. My heart started acting up. Doctor says it's stress. I say it's consequence. I hit the pavement, and I remember thinking, this is it. This is how I go out. Alone. Then I saw him. This kid kneeling down, handing me water like it was medicine. His last $10 spent on a stranger who looked like every warning label he'd ever been told to avoid. A ripple of shame passed through the bystanders who'd once crossed the street to avoid Marvin. Tracy caught it, let it settle. You helped me when everyone else turned away, she said, softer now. That makes you one of us. Marvin's throat tightened. The words didn't sound like a compliment. They sounded like a welcome home to a family he never knew existed. Around him, the same neighbors who had once glared now stared in silence, caught between awe and guilt. A man in a blue work shirt whispered to another, That's the woman he saved? Guess so, the other replied. Didn't expect this. Tracy crouched slightly so she was eye level with Marvin. You still don't get it, do you? You didn't just help me breathe. You reminded me why this road matters. You gave me back faith in people. Faith I thought I'd lost. He swallowed hard. I just did what anyone should. She smiled sadly. Kid, if that were true, I wouldn't have a job. The crowd chuckled quietly, small, uncertain, but it was the first sound of warmth all morning. Tracy straightened, turning her attention to the reporters now circling. You want your headline? She called. Here it is. A 15-year-old boy from Detroit reminded a bunch of bikers what humanity looks like. The cameras flashed like lightning. Microphones tilted toward her. One reporter called out, Ms. Harms, what exactly is your organization planning to do here today? Tracy lifted a hand. We don't do press conferences. We do proof. At her signal, several riders opened the back of the trucks. Workers in matching vests began unloading crates, power tools, and bags of concrete. Others rolled out blueprints and spread them across a nearby car hood. The crowd leaned in. Even Marvin couldn't stop watching. Tracy faced them again. Every year, we choose one act of kindness that changes a life. We ride to find the person behind it. Then we make sure their kindness doesn't stop there. Another biker handed her a folded photograph. She held it up. A faded picture of her and her brother, both younger, both wearing the old Hell's Angels logo. I used to think this patch meant power, she said. Turns out, real power is being able to look at the world that hurt you and say, I'll heal it anyway. That's what the road back angels do. She handed the photo to Marvin. This is where I started. You're where I'm headed. Ruth's breath caught. The crowd was completely silent now. Marvin looked at the photo, then at Tracy. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything, she replied. You already spoke with action. One of the reporters broke the hush. Ms. Harms, what do you mean by proof? What happens next? Tracy gave the faintest grin. You'll see. She stepped closer to the microphone someone held out and let the corner of her mouth lift, like she was about to tell the punchline of the universe. Before I pass this mic back, she said, there's something you all need to understand. This isn't charity. It's balance. The world spins on what we give. This kid kept it spinning when the rest of you were too afraid to touch it. She turned to Marvin again, eyes clear and glimmering. And because of that, he's about to see what giving can bring back around. The bikers behind her shifted, readying something big. The rumble of engines swelled again, this time not menacing, but ceremonial, like applause made of metal. Tracy looked out over the sea of faces, the cameras, the disbelief that hung in the air like fog before dawn. And then Tracy smiled and said the words that would change everything. "We brought gifts." The words, "We brought gifts," hung in the air like thunder right before it breaks. For a second, nobody moved. Then Tracy lifted her hand and pointed toward the trucks lined along the curb. Engines revved, boots hit pavement, and the road-back angels surged into motion like a small army with purpose instead of war. Marvin stood frozen at the edge of the crowd, his backpack half open, fingers still gripping one of his school notebooks. He couldn't tell if this was real, if this roar of noise and motion was somehow for him. Tracy turned back to him, her smile edged with something fierce and kind. "You spent your last 10 to save a stranger, kid," she said. "So we figured we'd pay it forward, with interest." Then the miracles began. Gift 1, home rebuilt. 2 bikers unrolled a massive banner that read, "Community Rebuild, Project Ruth," and fastened it across the front of Marvin's crumbling apartment complex. The crowd gasped. Crews in matching black vests poured out of the trucks carrying ladders, paint cans, and toolboxes. Within minutes, hammers were pounding, drills buzzing. One group tore down the rotted porch boards, another started repainting the faded blue siding in fresh cream white. Marvin's jaw dropped. "They're fixing our building." Tracy grinned. "No, kid. They're rebuilding your home." He watched as 2 men replaced the cracked window he'd covered with cardboard last winter. A woman in a red bandana carried in boxes of furniture wrapped in plastic. New couches, a rug, even curtains. Ruth stood beside him, trembling. This can't be real." Tracy handed her a clipboard with blueprints and permits already stamped. "It's as real as you were when you raised this boy on kindness. The foundation was good. You just needed the walls to match." Ruth covered her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. Gift 2, medical fund. When the last ladder came down and the new porch light flicked on, Tracy turned to Ruth again. From her jacket pocket, she pulled out a small envelope sealed with a wax emblem, the same angel wings patch on her vest. "Second gift," Tracy said. "Something that should have been yours all along." Ruth took the envelope with shaking fingers, opened it, and found a sleek black card with her name embossed in gold. Underneath it read, "Comprehensive medical coverage, unlimited prescription access. Sponsored by the Road Back Angels Foundation." Tracy's voice softened. "Full coverage for your treatments, Ms. Ruth. No more skipped refills. No more waiting until payday to breathe." Ruth tried to speak, but could only whisper, "I don't deserve this." Tracy touched her arm gently. "You deserve every breath you've ever given to someone else." Marvin watched his grandmother sink into the nearest chair, her hand trembling around the card like it was glass. He had never seen her cry from relief before. Gift 3, scholarship. Tracy turned back to Marvin. "Now for you, genius." He blinked. "Me?" A tall man in a denim vest approached with a white envelope stamped with the logo of Detroit Tech Academy. Tracy took it and placed it in Marvin's hands. "Congratulations," she said. "You've been accepted into the Future Mechanics program, full scholarship, tuition, housing, everything covered. We already made the call this morning. Marvin tore it open, eyes scanning the official letter. The words blurred through the tears he didn't bother hiding. Admitted. Awarded full funding. Start date, fall semester. Ruth let out a sound somewhere between a sob and a laugh. Lord, you're gonna build the things you used to fix. Marvin wiped his face with his sleeve. How did you even know I wanted this? Tracy smiled. Let's just say your boss, Roe, talks too much when he's proud of his crew. Somewhere in the back, Roe himself appeared, wiping grease from his hands, grinning ear to ear. Told you, kid, you got the brains for more than brakes and tires. The crowd erupted in applause. Gift 4. Job internship. When the noise quieted, Tracy lifted a small set of keys from her belt. They clinked together, bright and new. But school's only half the road. You'll need miles under your boots, too. She handed the keys to Marvin. A tag dangled from them. Roadback Motors. Apprentice Access. You start next week, she said. Paid internship at our Detroit garage. My crew will teach you everything from rebuilds to design. You'll be working with people who've been where you are and who made it out. Marvin stared at the keys, speechless. I can't, he began, but Tracy stopped him. You can. You already did. You didn't wait for someone to save you before you acted. That's the kind of person I want in my shop. He closed his hand around the keys like they were a lifeline. Thank you. You don't owe me thanks, she said. You owe the world your best. That's payment enough. Gift 5. The motorcycle, Mercy. The roar of an engine cut through the applause. One of the bikers rolled a sleek, black and silver motorcycle out of the trailer, a custom build gleaming under the sunlight. The crowd gasped. Tracy gestured toward it. And this last one, well, this one's special. Marvin's heart nearly stopped. The bike was smaller than the others, built with a lighter frame, perfect for a beginner, but every inch of it was flawless. The tank bore a single engraving in chrome. Marvin's Mercy. Built by my crew, Tracy said proudly. We all pitched in. She's yours. Marvin shook his head, backing away. No, I can't take that. It's too much. Tracy stepped closer, her tone gentle but firm. Listen to me. You don't need wings to be an angel. Sometimes you just need wheels and the courage to keep moving forward. He touched the bike's handlebars, tracing the engraving with his thumb. It didn't feel like a gift. It felt like a story, his story, etched into metal. This is what your kindness built, kid, Tracy said. You gave me $10. We're just giving you your life back. The crowd broke into cheers. Reporters caught every word, every tear, every hug. The roar of engines swelled again, no longer frightening, but triumphant, like a song written for second chances. Marvin looked at his grandmother, who was now surrounded by smiling neighbors. The same people who once whispered now clapped, reaching out to shake his hand, to thank him for something they couldn't quite name, but felt deeply. Ruth walked up beside him, clutching her medical card like scripture. Baby, she said, her voice soft and trembling. This is what faith looks like when it rides on two wheels. Marvin laughed through his tears. Yes, I finally know what $10 can really buy. Tracy swung a leg over her bike, engine rumbling low. Hope, she said. It buys hope. And as the sun climbed higher, the street once marked by fear became a festival of chrome and light. Cameras flashed, engines thundered, and a single boy stood at the center of it all. proof that kindness, even when it costs everything, always pays back in ways the world can't measure. He gave $10. They gave him his life back. By nightfall, the street looked like the aftermath of a miracle. The smell of fresh paint lingered in the air. The newly rebuilt porch gleamed under the orange glow of the streetlight. Grandma Ruth's laughter still drifted from inside. Light, unguarded. The kind Marvin hadn't heard in years. He sat on the curb beside Marvin's Mercy, the black and silver motorcycle catching reflections from the windows. Tracy and the road-back angels were saying their goodbyes, their engines rumbling low like thunder getting ready to move on. Cameras flashed from across the street. Someone shouted his name. Someone else cried. Marvin didn't understand how fast the world could change, not until his phone buzzed non-stop in his pocket. At first he thought it was a glitch. Ping, ping, ping. He opened it and froze. His phone screen was filled with notifications, reposts, comments, DMs. The video of the parade had gone viral. Every angle, every roar, every gift. Someone had filmed him standing in disbelief as Tracy handed over the scholarship letter. Another clip showed Ruth clutching her medical card, tears rolling down her face. The caption read, "Black boy spent his last $10 helping a biker. Next day, 200 angels showed up." The view count ticked past 300,000, then 800,000, then 1,000,000. Marvin's stomach flipped. "Tracy," he called, voice small. "We're online." She glanced back, smile tugging one corner of her mouth. "Welcome to the 21st century, kid. Everything's online." By morning, it was everywhere. News outlets ran the story on loop. Talk shows debated it. Social feeds swarmed with hashtags. Marvin's Mercy, Kindness Rides, Road-back Angels. But the first wave wasn't kind. "Staged," one comment read. "Another fake PR stunt. These bikers are criminals trying to look holy. Kid probably got paid to act poor." Marvin scrolled through hundreds of them, each one sharper than the last. His stomach sank. Grandma Ruth came up behind him, resting a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Don't read the noise, baby." "They think it's all fake," he whispered. "They think you're fake, that Tracy's fake." "People see the world through the cracks in their own hearts," she said softly. "But truth's got a funny way of shining through." And then it did. That afternoon, a new video surfaced. A middle-aged veteran with a prosthetic leg sat on a folding chair outside a small shop, holding a sign that said, "Thank you, Road-back Angels." He looked into the camera and said, "They built my ramp when the city wouldn't. That woman they call Tracy, she paid my rent when my benefits got delayed. I don't care what patches they wear. Those people saved my life." Another video followed, a single mother in Ohio showing her son's repaired wheelchair, explaining that the Road-back Angels had funded it after a house fire. Then came a teacher from Phoenix, a pastor from Atlanta, a nurse from Chicago, all sharing stories of the same riders rebuilding homes, donating, showing up quietly when no one else did. The tide began to turn. By the end of the week, the headline had changed. From outlaws to angels. The motorcycle group changing lives. One ride at a time. Marvin's photo. Him standing beside Mercy, head bowed and smiling shy, landed on the front page of the Detroit Free Press. Underneath, the quote read, "He gave $10 to help someone breathe. Now the world's remembering how to." He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He settled somewhere in between. Tracy called him later that day. The line was full of static, her voice still carrying that familiar grit. "You holding up, kid?" "I think so. It's weird, though. Everyone knows me now." "That's the price of doing something real," she said. "The noise always comes first. The truth follows later." He heard engines in the background. The Angels were already riding to their next stop. "We'll be back in Detroit next month," she said. "But for now, enjoy what you built. You earned it." He smiled. "You built it too." "Maybe," she said, "but you lit the fuse." 2 days later, the mayor's office called. When Marvin answered, he thought it was a prank. "City Hall?" he repeated. "Yes," the assistant said briskly. "The mayor would like to invite you and Ms. Ruth to a recognition ceremony this Friday. Also, Ms. Harms and the Road-Back Angels are attending." Ruth nearly dropped her teacup. "Boy, I've never been to City Hall except to pay water bills." Marvin laughed, still stunned. "Guess we're getting a better reason this time." Friday came like a dream dressed in reality. City Hall buzzed with reporters, cameras, and curious onlookers. The marble steps glistened from last night's rain. The mayor stood at the podium, the city seal gleaming behind her. "Detroit has seen its share of division," she said, her voice echoing through the square. "But today, we celebrate unity, sparked by a simple act of compassion." She gestured toward Marvin and Ruth. "A boy who had $10 to his name gave it up to help a stranger. And that stranger, through her organization, reminded us all what humanity looks like when it shows up." The crowd applauded. Ruth dabbed her eyes with a tissue. Tracy stepped forward, her leather vest polished, her patch gleaming under the sun. She leaned toward Marvin. "This time, kid, you're not in the background. You're the headline." He smiled. "Not sure I'm built for headlines." "That's the thing," she said. "Headlines don't build people. Actions do." The mayor handed Marvin a certificate embossed with gold trim. "City of Detroit, Humanity Honor Award." Flashbulbs burst. The sound of applause swelled. Tracy's riders revved at their bikes in salute. A symphony of steel and gratitude echoing through downtown. Ruth clutched his hand tight, tears streaking her cheeks. "Your mama would have been proud, baby. You changed how people see the world, and you didn't even raise your voice." He looked up at the crowd, the same city that once crossed the street to avoid bikers, now cheering them. The sound rose and rose until the engines joined it, filling the sky with thunder. That night, when Marvin got home, the porch light glowed soft against the fresh paint. He sat on the steps beside Mercy, tracing the engraved letters with his thumb. The neighborhood around him was quiet, not empty, just calm. He thought about the way kindness could ripple, one small act reaching farther than noise, faster than hate. For the first time, he understood what Tracy meant about truth finding its way through the cracks. He'd seen it happen. From one boy, one bottle of water, one act of courage. And now, an entire city stood awake because of it. The city once divided by fear now came together in the roar of engines and hope. The shop smelled like oil, metal, and second chances. It had been 6 months since the day 200 engines thundered down Marvin Street. Now, instead of standing in awe of the bikes, he worked among them. The Road-Back Motors garage was alive with the rhythm of clanking tools, low laughter, and country rock humming through an old radio. Sunlight poured in through wide bay doors, catching the dust as it danced above half-rebuilt machines. Marvin wiped his hands on a rag and stepped back from the engine he'd been working on. "I think she's ready," he said. Tracy leaned over his shoulder, her ponytail streaked with gray and grease. "Not bad, rookie," she said, inspecting his work. "But don't forget, always tighten the manifold before you torque the bolts." He rolled his eyes playfully. "You tell me that every time." "That's because every time someone forgets," she said with a grin. "And then we're the ones pushing a dead bike up the street in the rain." He laughed, tightening the final bolt. It was hard to believe this was his life now. School during the week, the garage on weekends, and every day a chance to build something new. His scholarship was thriving, his grades strong, and Ruth's health had finally stabilized. For the first time in years, he wasn't surviving. He was living. Tracy patted the side of the motorcycle. "She's good as new. You've got a gift, kid." "Guess I learned from the best," Marvin said. Tracy smiled but said nothing, just looked around at the other bikers. People who once carried their own ghosts, but now rebuilt more than engines. Later that afternoon, they took a break outside. The Michigan sky was a flat gray, but the air was warm. They sat on overturned crates, coffee mugs steaming in their hands. Tracy leaned back against the wall, eyes distant. "You ever think about how one moment can flip your whole life?" "All the time," Marvin said. "I still can't believe that gas station night even happened. Feels like it was someone else." "It was still you," she said softly. "The kind of you that shows up when life asks a hard question." He turned to her. "What about you? What made you start all this?" Tracy let out a long breath, staring at the street. "You ever run out of gas in the middle of nowhere?" "Not yet." "I did, about 20 years ago." She gave a dry laugh. "It was winter, snow coming down sideways. I was 27, broke, and fresh off, losing everything. My brother was gone. My folks wouldn't talk to me. I had a bike, a bad attitude, and a tank that read empty." Marvin listened quietly. "I pulled into this tiny station outside Chicago," she continued. "No money, no friends, nothing left. I was ready to walk away from it all. And then this man, truck driver, didn't even tell me his name, bought me a full tank. Said, 'You look like you've been fighting too long. Go find something worth fighting for.'" She looked down at her scarred hands. "That one tank got me to a shelter. From there, I found a job at a garage, met people who believed in me again, and one day, I started Road Back Angels. Because I figured, if one stranger could change my life with $30 of gas, maybe I could spend the rest of mine doing the same." Marvin stared at her, eyes wide. "So, all of this started with someone helping you?" She nodded. "That's the funny thing about redemption. It doesn't start big. It starts small. One act, one breath, one person deciding not to look away." She nudged his shoulder. "And you kept it alive. You're part of that same line now." In the months that followed, they rode together across the city. The Road Back Angels expanded their outreach, fixing up playgrounds, repairing homes, and running youth workshops. Marvin became their youngest volunteer, teaching kids how to build go-karts and repair old bikes. He saw the same spark in their faces that once lived in his. That flicker of hope when someone finally believes in you. One afternoon, they visited a neighborhood even rougher than his old block. The streets were cracked, the buildings sagging under years of neglect. But when Tracy rolled in leading the pack, the kids ran out, cheering, their laughter cutting through the noise like sunlight through rain clouds. Marvin parked beside her and said quietly, "They look like I did." She smiled. "Then show them what comes next." He knelt beside a boy who couldn't have been older than 12 and showed him how to replace a tire tube. "You see," Marvin said, "it's all about patience. You don't fight the metal, you work with it." The boy grinned. "Like magic." "Not magic," Marvin said, "just care." Tracy watched from a distance, pride flickering behind her sunglasses. "That's it," she whispered. "That's why we ride." As the sun sank, they finished their work and sat on their bikes at the top of a small hill, watching the city lights come alive below. "You ever miss the old days?" Marvin asked quietly. Tracy shook her head. "No, I miss the people, sure, but not the person I was. Back then, I thought strength was about how loud your engine was. Now I know it's about how far your heart can carry you." Marvin smiled, resting his hands on the handlebars. "Guess we both found our road back." She turned to him, her eyes so bright under the dim light. "You know what I see when I look at you?" "What?" "A reminder that what we give doesn't die. It just keeps moving, from one soul to the next." He looked at her then, really looked, and realized she wasn't just a friend or a mentor. She was the family life had forgotten to give him. Tracy reached over and squeezed his shoulder. "You're the son I never had, Marvin. You carry the best part of what this world still got left." He swallowed hard, blinking fast. "You're the mom I didn't get to keep." Neither spoke for a while. The engines around them idled low, purring like a heartbeat. Finally, Tracy nodded toward the horizon. "You ready to ride?" He smiled. "Always?" They kicked up their stands, helmets snapping into place. The engines roared to life, echoing through the empty streets like a hymn made of thunder and grace. As they rode side by side, one woman carrying the weight of her past, one boy carrying the hope of the future, the world around them blurred into streaks of light. Because this wasn't just a ride anymore. It was a promise. A circle of redemption, still spinning, still burning bright. Sometimes angels wear leather. Sometimes they're 15 with $10 and a brave heart. The day the Marvin's Mercy Foundation opened, the air outside Detroit's community center buzzed like a summer festival. Rows of motorcycles lined the block, chrome flashing beneath a sky so blue it looked painted. Reporters crowded near the ribbon archway. Kids from nearby schools held handmade signs that read, "Kindness rides again." Marvin stood on the steps in a navy suit, the first one he'd ever owned, the engraved key to the building warm in his palm. Beside him, Tracy adjusted her vest, its Roadback Angels patch glinting in the sun. The sound of idling bikes filled the silence before she stepped up to the microphone. She glanced at Marvin, then faced the crowd. Her voice carried with the ease of someone who had survived storms and found her sky again. "A year ago, I collapsed at a gas station. No one wanted to help, except a 15-year-old boy with $10 and more courage than sense." A wave of laughter rolled through the crowd. Tracy smiled, then continued, her tone softening. "He didn't ask who I was. He didn't care about my patch or my past. He just saw someone who needed help. The $10 didn't just buy a bottle of water. It bought me a second chance. And because of him, we built something that'll give 1,000 more." She gestured toward the sign above the entrance. Marvin's Mercy Foundation, Youth Mentorship and Skills Program. "He gave me $10. I gave him a future. Now he's giving the world hope." Applause broke like thunder. Bikers revved their engines in salute. the sound rolling through the city like the heartbeat of redemption. Marvin stepped forward, nervous but steady. His voice wavered only slightly as he spoke into the mic. "When I gave that $10, I didn't think it mattered. I just wanted to help. But what I've learned is, every act of kindness is a seed. You might not see it grow right away, but it does. It always does." He looked down at the crowd, kids, parents, strangers, people who once might have crossed the street to avoid a biker, now cheering side by side. "This building isn't about me," he said. "It's about what happens when we stop waiting for heroes and decide to be one." The roar of applause nearly drowned him out. Tracy cut the ribbon, and confetti burst across the sky. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. But Marvin barely heard them. He turned to Ruth, standing a few feet away with her cane and a proud, trembling smile. "You did good, baby," she said, her eyes shining. "You turned $10 into a lifetime." He hugged her, careful not to wrinkle her dress. "Couldn't have done it without you," she chuckled. "That's what grandmas are for." Inside the foundation, the walls were lined with photos, smiling kids learning to weld, fix engines, or code. The Roadback Angels had funded scholarships, built workstations, and brought mentors from every walk of life. It was more than a center. It was a movement. After the ceremony, the bikers dispersed in waves, revving their engines one last time as the crowd cheered. The sound faded into distance, leaving behind a golden quiet. Marvin stood outside the center, the sun dipping low behind the rooftops. The street had mostly cleared when he noticed a boy sitting alone on the bus stop bench. 17, maybe 18, worn hoodie, cracked sneakers, and eyes that looked like they'd seen too much too soon. Marvin hesitated, then walked over. "You okay, man?" The boy looked up, startled. "Bus broke down," he muttered. "Gotta get to the hospital. My mom's in there, but I ain't got enough for the fare." Marvin reached into his pocket and felt a folded 20, the same bill Tracy had once handed him on his first day at Roadback Motors. He smiled. "Here, take it." The boy's eyes widened. "For real?" Marvin handed him the 20 and his half-full water bottle. "Yeah, when you're okay again." He paused, remembering the words that had carried him this far. "Help the next one." The boy stared at him for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Thanks, man." Marvin watched him walk off toward the corner, the evening light catching his face, a mix of confusion, gratitude, and hope. Tracy's voice echoed in his mind. "What we give doesn't die, and it just keeps moving." Later that night, the foundation lights glowed behind him as he stood beside Marvin's Mercy, parked at the curb. The bike's chrome reflected the streetlights like a halo. He thought of the chain reaction that had brought him here. A stranger's collapse, a $10 choice, a roar of engines, and a circle of kindness still widening by the day. He ran a hand along the bike's handlebar and whispered, "We did it, Tracy." From down the block, he heard the faint growl of a motorcycle engine. Familiar, steady, comforting. A lone rider passed by, raising 2 fingers in salute. Marvin grinned and returned the gesture. The city around him hummed with life. Laughter from a diner window. Music spilling from passing cars. The faint rustle of the wind carrying voices that spoke of change. He slipped on his helmet and kicked the bike to life. The engine rumbled low, like the purr of something alive. As he rode off, the lights of Marvin's Mercy Foundation faded into the rear view, not as an ending, but as a beginning. Because kindness, once given, never stops moving. It finds new hands, new hearts, new roads, and sometimes It starts with something as small as $10 and the courage to care.